Disgrace to America. That's what Donald Trump sneers as he stares down Jasmine Crockett, the woman daring to challenge the lies that have cost this country over $2 trillion in corruption and allowed 1 in 5 Americans to live under injustice they never asked for. Jasmine stands tall, eyes blazing, holding dozens of documents that could topple an empire built on deception. Every word she utters threatens to unravel decades of unchecked power, and every breath in that room feels like the countdown to a reckoning America has been waiting for. In just the first 10 minutes, the tension skyrockets, Trump mocking, twisting, trying to intimidate, while Jasmine counters with precision, exposing the cracks in a facade millions were fooled by. The air is electric. Every glance, every whisper, every smirk a spark ready to ignite. This isn't just a courtroom or a hearing. This is a battle over truth, over justice, over the very soul of a nation. And Jasmine Crockett is ready to fight like her life and everyone's future depends on it. The moment Donald Trump stepped into the room, the air itself seemed to tremble. His smirk was sharp, a razor slicing through the tense silence. He looked down at Jasmine Crockett, that firebrand of justice, and sneered with a voice dripping contempt. "What do you think you're going to do to me, little one?" The words hit like a whip across the back of the courtroom. Cameras whirred, lenses zooming in on the clash of expressions. Trump's arrogance radiating, Jasmine's eyes glowing with defiance. The room held its collective breath. Every journalist, every aide, every senator in that chamber could feel the electricity sparking in the space between them. Jasmine didn't flinch. Her voice cut through the tension like a blade, sharp and unwavering. "You're about to learn what justice really means." It was more than a rebuttal. It was a challenge, a gauntlet thrown directly into the lion's den. The courtroom seemed to pulse with anticipation. Every movement, every glance, every shift of weight was magnified, charged with the gravity of the moment. Trump scoffed, leaning back in his chair with a dismissive wave. "Justice? Cute idea. Let's see if you can survive speaking it aloud." His words dripped with scorn, each syllable designed to belittle, to unnerve. But Jasmine didn't just survive. She leaned forward, her hands resting firmly on the polished oak of the desk, eyes locking with his in a silent war of wills. The first volley erupted. "You liar!" Jasmine spat, each word punctuated by the weight of countless broken promises, hidden scandals, and public betrayals that had piled up over the years. Trump snapped back instantly, his voice rising like a storm. "You coward!" His grin had vanished, replaced by something raw, almost feral. The room flinched, sensing the escalation. Every staffer, every journalist, every senator was caught in the gravity of the confrontation. This wasn't procedural anymore. It was war. Words became weapons. Accusations hung in the air like thunderclouds, and neither side showed any sign of retreat. Jasmine shifted, holding up a sheaf of papers, evidence that could topple reputations, proof of lies, embezzlement, and manipulation. She didn't just speak, she struck, each declaration precise, each statement designed to peel back the layers of deception. "The people deserve better than your games," she declared, her voice a mixture of fury and unshakable conviction. Trump's eyes narrowed. "Games? You're in over your head, sweetheart. This is power, not some moral playground for the naive." His tone was venomous, laced with menace. He leaned closer, the air thick with the tension of someone used to bending the world to their will, someone unused to resistance. But Jasmine didn't step back, not a fraction. She let the words hang, the silence in the courtroom now heavier than any accusation. The cameras caught every flicker of emotion, the tremor in Trump's jaw, the steadfast fire in Jasmine's eyes. Outside, millions would later watch this moment replayed and realize they were witnessing history being written in real time. "Dishonest, cowardly, corrupt," Jasmine continued, each adjective a hammer on the foundation Trump had spent decades building. The room felt like it could split in two from the intensity of her condemnation. Senators shifted uncomfortably in their seats, aides scribbled notes frantically, the press held cameras steady, capturing every second of this verbal battlefield. Trump bared his teeth in a snarl. "Pathetic. You think you can intimidate me? You're nothing but a nuisance standing in the way of greatness." His words were designed to provoke, to inflame, to strike at her composure. But Jasmine's lips curled into a quiet, knowing smile. She wasn't intimidated, she was ignited. Every exchange now felt like a chess match with no safe moves, where the consequences of each word would ripple far beyond the walls of this chamber. The tension escalated with every passing second. The energy so thick it was almost visible, a storm waiting to break. And in the midst of it all, Jasmine Crockett stood firm, unyielding, channeling the anger, hope, and frustration of millions who had suffered under injustice. Every insult, every sneer from Trump only sharpened her resolve. As the opening salvo of this confrontation thundered through the room, the world outside leaned in. Viewers at home would later see the sparks flying in this first encounter, understand the stakes, and feel the magnetic pull of this battle between deceit and integrity. Before we dive deeper into this epic clash, remember to subscribe to Harrison Stories for every twist, every revelation, and every pulse-pounding moment from this unfolding saga of justice versus corruption. Every notification will bring you closer to witnessing the fight for truth as it happens. Jasmine took a slow, deliberate breath, letting the silence of the courtroom stretch, heavy and electric. Every gaze in the room seemed glued to her, every camera lens framing the tension that had been building for months. Then, with a voice steady yet burning with fire, she unleashed the first blow. "You only know how to lie and evade responsibility." The words struck like lightning. Trump's smirk faltered, replaced by a tightening of his jaw. He leaned back, attempting to mask irritation with arrogance, and hissed, "You're just a rookie lawyer. Don't try to lecture me on politics." The air in the chamber seemed to vibrate, charged with confrontation. This wasn't just a debate, it was a duel, a war fought with words, with reputations, with the future of justice itself. Every syllable carried the weight of betrayal, the anger of millions, and the audacity of a man used to bending reality to his will. Jasmine's eyes never wavered. She leaned forward, her hands pressing against the polished wood of the desk, grounding herself against the storm of arrogance before her. "I'm not here to lecture, Mr. Trump. I'm here to expose the truth you've spent decades burying. Every American deserves to see it." Trump's gaze sharpened, the hint of a sneer returning, but this time it was tinged with a flicker of unease. "Expose the truth? You have no idea what it takes to run this country. You're in over your head, little girl." But Jasmine held her ground, her stare piercing through the layers of deceit. "Little girl? The only thing small here is your conscience." Her voice resonated through the room, reverberating off the walls, a tangible force that demanded attention. Every movement, every whisper, every subtle shift of the chamber seemed to orbit around her defiance. She struck again, sharp and precise. "Millions of families have suffered because of your decisions, millions who trusted you only to be let down, and you act as if it's someone else's problem." Trump's smirk flickered, and for a fleeting second, the confident veneer cracked. He slammed his palm against the desk, leaning in, voice rising with the force of practiced intimidation. "Consequences? You don't understand power, influence, or the world beyond your moral fantasies." The room trembled with tension, the charged silence following each outburst thick as fog. Every senator shifted, every aide scribbled furiously, and every journalist's lens captured the electric duel, the flickers of frustration on Trump's face, the unshakable determination in Jasmine's eyes. Jasmine didn't flinch. She allowed the weight of her words, of every document she held, to settle into the consciousness of the room. "Naive? No. I am accountable. I am responsible. Unlike you, I don't hide behind spin, influence, or fear. I answer to the truth, and that truth will hold you accountable." Her declaration hung in the air, relentless. Trump's hands clenched at the edge of the desk, as if he could physically push back the reality crashing into him. His voice cut sharply through the silence. "Accountable? The people elected me. They follow me. Morality cannot override influence." Jasmine's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. She leaned slightly forward, letting her words strike like surgical blows. Influence built on lies is no influence at all. The people may follow, but they deserve the facts. They deserve justice, and I will give it to them. For a moment, the courtroom itself seemed suspended in time. Every movement, every hushed exhale, every hesitant glance became magnified. Then, like a storm cresting, the tension surged, thrumming in every corner, bouncing off every wall, every witness, every camera lens. Trump's lips twisted in frustration, his confidence visibly shaking. Yet he continued to fire off accusations, desperate to reclaim control. Jasmine met each one with precision, turning every attempt at intimidation into fuel for her resolve. It was no longer a hearing, it was an arena, a battlefield of ideas, power, and integrity. Every glance between them sparked with anticipation, every uttered word heavy with consequences, not just for them, but for millions watching, waiting for justice to prevail. As the first salvo of this verbal war reached a tense pause, Jasmine straightened, her eyes locked on Trump, unwavering. You wanted a fight, Mr. Trump? Here it is, and the truth will not bend to fear, power, or arrogance. In that chamber, the battle lines were drawn. The duel of words, wills, and ideals had begun in earnest, and Jasmine Crockett was no longer simply a challenger. She had become a storm, gathering force, unstoppable, ready to dismantle every lie that dared to stand in her path. Jasmine reached into her briefcase and pulled out the first set of documents. Thick folders stuffed with evidence that could topple empires, expose decades of corruption, and rewrite the history that Trump had carefully sculpted. She slammed them on the desk with a sound that resonated through the chamber like a gunshot. Every eye turned, every journalist leaned forward, every senator's pulse quickened. Her voice, low but slicing, cut through the tension. You are not fit to be president. The courtroom gasped. The words weren't just an accusation. They were a verdict, a seismic jolt aimed straight at Trump's ego. The air seemed to vibrate with anticipation, crackling with the electricity of confrontation. Trump's face contorted with rage. He slammed his fist against the table, the sound echoing like a drumbeat of fury. You insolent fool! You dare to disgrace me in front of the entire nation? His eyes burned, and for a moment, the carefully constructed mask of confidence shattered, revealing the raw fury beneath. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She leaned forward, her finger tracing the charts, emails, and transcripts that documented lies, backroom deals, and manipulations. I dare because the people deserve to know the truth. I dare because you've stolen their trust, their money, and their hope. Every vote, every promise you broke, it ends here. Trump roared, his voice bouncing off the walls, mixing with the murmurs of stunned witnesses. Hope? You call this exposing hope? You're a naive, reckless fool, playing with fire you don't understand. The words hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. Jasmine's response was immediate, razor-sharp, unyielding. Naive, reckless. I'm accountable. I answer to the people. And unlike you, I don't hide behind lies, spin, or threats. Her hands moved deliberately across the table, holding the evidence for all to see. Photographs, financial records, email chains, every piece a dagger aimed at the core of Trump's narrative. Senators leaned forward, aides whispered urgently, and journalists scribbled furiously, capturing the unfolding spectacle. For years you've manipulated, deceived, and corrupted, Jasmine continued, voice rising with controlled fury. You've betrayed the very office you claim to honor, and now you will face accountability. Trump's nostrils flared. He leaned closer, the fury in his voice now mixed with desperation. Accountability? The people elected me. You think your paper stacks and your speeches can override their will? Jasmine's eyes burned with unshakable intensity. She pointed at him with the corner of a folder, her finger sharp as a dagger. Your election does not give you the right to lie, cheat, or escape justice. You wield power without honor, and that ends here, now. The tension in the room was palpable. The words weren't just spoken, they were weapons. Each insult, each accusation, each pointed statement carried the weight of millions of Americans who had suffered under deceit and greed. Trump's hand trembled as he slammed it against the desk again. You think you can destroy me with words, with papers? You're outmatched, Jasmine. But she wasn't intimidated. She leaned back slightly, her eyes never leaving his, her lips curling into a defiant smile. Outmatched? No, Mr. Trump. You have been exposed for what you truly are. A man who fears accountability more than he fears God. And the world is finally watching. Every phrase was precise, every statement calculated. The courtroom felt like a coliseum, a gladiatorial arena, where words were the weapons, evidence the shields, and the stakes were nothing less than the soul of the nation. Trump barked, cursed, spat insults that echoed with fury. Dishonest, liars, cowards, you'll regret this. Jasmine's retort cut through like lightning. The only regret will be yours, for thinking lies could protect you from the truth. You've built a kingdom on deception, but kingdoms built on lies crumble. The chamber shivered with the clash of wills. Every whisper, every shuffle of papers, every camera click amplified the intensity. Even the most composed senators seemed held hostage by the electric energy, watching two forces collide in real time. Trump's voice cracked with frustration, rising into a roar. I am the president. You will not humiliate me like this. Jasmine's voice was ice and fire combined. President, you are a usurper of trust, and your reign of deception ends here, right now. For a heartbeat, the room seemed to hold its breath. Then the words sank in, slow and heavy like molten lead. The audience could feel it, the weight of truth confronting arrogance, courage challenging deceit. And through it all, Jasmine Crockett remained unshaken, relentless, unstoppable. Every insult hurled at her only sharpened her focus. Every attempt at intimidation became fuel for her righteous fury. The first strike of her justice had landed. The storm she carried had begun to tear through the carefully constructed illusions surrounding Trump. And even in his fury, even in his bluster, the first cracks in his armor had begun to show. This was no longer just a battle of words. It was the unveiling of truth in its purest, most combustible form. Every gesture, every glance, every breath carried the promise that nothing would be left untouched. Trump leaned forward, the fury in his eyes sharpening into a weapon. His voice, dripping with venom, cut through the tense silence of the chamber. You're nothing but a fame-seeker, Jasmine, chasing the spotlight, trying to make a name for yourself on television. The accusation landed like a strike meant to wound, designed to undermine her credibility, to reduce her to ambition and ego rather than principle. The room trembled with anticipation, senators shifting uneasily, journalists scribbling frantically, cameras capturing every micro-expression. Jasmine's lips curled into a controlled, icy smile. Her eyes locked onto his, piercing through the arrogance and bluster, and she struck back with the force of a hammer. You are a puppet of ambition, Mr. Trump, lying without a flicker of conscience. Every word you speak is a betrayal, every gesture a mask for deceit. The words reverberated across the room. Gasps and murmurs whispered through the chamber. The clash had shifted, no longer about policies or evidence alone, but a war of identities, of integrity against pretense. The audience felt it in their chests, a pounding rhythm of raw power and unyielding defiance. Trump's face reddened, his smirk evaporating into an expression of pure frustration. He slammed his hand on the desk, rattling papers and sending a sharp echo through the courtroom. How dare you? You think your words can tarnish me in front of the entire nation? You're reckless, naive, and dangerously ambitious. Jasmine leaned forward, her voice sharp, her tone a combination of ice and fire. Dangerous? Perhaps. But I am dangerous only to lies, to corruption, and to those who would hide the truth. I am accountable to the people, to justice, to every soul you have deceived, and unlike you, I do not fear exposure. The chamber seemed to pulse with energy, the air thick with tension, like a tightly coiled spring ready to snap. Every senator shifted, gripping the edges of their desks. Every aide scribbled frantically, journalists' cameras capturing the rising storm. The duel was no longer verbal alone. It had become kinetic, a battle of wills that radiated from every corner of the room. Trump's voice escalated, the sharp edge of panic hidden beneath the fury. You think your righteousness can overpower experience? You have no idea what it takes to command, to negotiate, to survive in the arena of power? Jasmine's retort was immediate, cutting, unrelenting. Experience without honor is nothing but tyranny, Mr. Trump. Command without truth is dictatorship, and survival built on lies is meaningless. You thrive on deception, but the people are waking up, and their patience has ended. The tension was suffocating. Each statement was a strike, each retort a parry, and the courtroom felt like a grand stage where the fate of reputation and principle were being contested in real time. Trump's face twisted, every vein visible, his words a mixture of indignation and desperation. I built a legacy. You dare to destroy it with your theatrics and your naive crusade? Jasmine's eyes flared, each syllable deliberate, her voice ringing like a bell of justice. Legacy? A legacy of lies is nothing. You may have built towers, deals, and illusions, but they crumble when faced with accountability. And I am here to make sure they crumble in front of everyone. The room held its breath. It was no longer about who had the loudest voice or the flashiest rhetoric. It was a collision of moral force against unrestrained ambition. Every gesture, every pointed finger, every glare was charged with history, consequence, and the raw energy of truth confronting deceit. Trump slammed his palm again, nearly rattling the microphone, voice rising to a roar. You will regret this. You are meddling where you do not belong, threatening the entire system with your arrogance. Jasmine leaned back slightly, her presence unwavering, her composure a fortress. Regret? The only regret will be yours for believing lies could shield you. I am not here for your fear, your anger, or your threats. I am here for justice, for truth, and for the people who have been deceived for far too long. The tension broke for a fraction of a second as cameras captured the frozen faces of senators and aides, the weight of history settling like a tangible force. Every whisper, every shuffle of papers, every silent glance magnified the stakes. And in that instant, Jasmine Crockett became more than a challenger. She was a hurricane of conviction, every word a gust tearing through the defenses of arrogance, every phrase a strike at the heart of deceit. The room itself seemed alive with the force of the confrontation, every spectator caught in the gravitational pull of power and truth colliding. As the first wave of this personal and political assault subsided, the courtroom still hummed with residual energy. Trump's fury had not abated, but Jasmine had seized the moral high ground, delivering a counterattack that would echo far beyond the chamber. And as the cameras captured her steady gaze, her unyielding posture, and the simmering anger of a woman fighting for justice, one thing was clear. This was only the beginning, and the world was about to witness a storm unlike anything it had seen before. For those who want every shocking twist, every revelation, and every fierce moment of justice confronting power, make sure to subscribe to Harrison Stories, because the next blow is coming, and you won't want to miss a second. The doors of the chamber swung open and all eyes turned to the figure stepping forward. A witness, someone long silenced, now stood at the center of the storm. The air thickened, charged with anticipation. Cameras swiveled, flashes popped, and every journalist leaned forward, sensing the tectonic shift about to occur. Jasmine's lips curved into a triumphant smile, her eyes gleaming with uncontainable fire. You're scared now, aren't you? She whispered under her breath, though the words carried to every corner of the room. Her tone was electric, half teasing, half triumphant. Trump's gaze sharpened, darkening with fury. His jaw clenched and his voice thundered, low and menacing. You will regret standing in front of me, Jasmine. Every one of you will regret this. The witness began to speak, recounting moments, decisions, and deeds that directly implicated Trump in corruption and deception. Each word was a hammer, each detail a blade cutting through the thick veneer of his arrogance. The room seemed to vibrate with the force of revelation, the kind of energy that makes history feel alive and immediate. Jasmine's eyes sparkled as the testimony unfolded. Every nod, every grimace, every gasp from the audience was fuel to her fire. She leaned forward, voice dripping with satisfaction, letting her words punctuate the witness's revelations. Scared now, aren't you? Afraid the truth will finally catch up to you? Trump slammed his hand on the desk, rattling papers and microphones, his face flushing red with rage. You insolent little brat! How dare you bring someone to ruin me in front of the entire nation? His voice roared like a storm, echoing through the chamber, the intensity nearly knocking over the air of control he tried to maintain. The witness didn't falter, reading document after document, recounting phone calls, emails, and clandestine meetings. Each disclosure was more explosive than the last, and the room held its collective breath. Every whisper, every scratch of pen on paper, every shutter click of cameras amplified the gravity of the moment. Jasmine leaned back slightly, eyes unwavering, as Trump continued his furious tirade. You think your words and papers can undo decades of influence, of power, of legacy? You're fools. Her lips curved into a cold, triumphant smile. Fools? No. You're the fool, Mr. Trump. Believing lies could protect you forever. Believing that fear could silence justice. The world is watching, and for the first time, you can't control the narrative. The room seemed to tremble under the weight of her words. Senators leaned forward, aides shifted uncomfortably. Journalists captured every micro-expression. Trump's fury, Jasmine's unshakable resolve. The witnesses' trembling yet courageous testimony. The tension was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Trump's voice escalated, desperate and dangerous. You dare accuse me? You dare bring lies and betrayal into this room? I will destroy every one of you. Jasmine's tone remained calm but lethal, each word a scalpel slicing through his bluster. Destroy? The truth can't be destroyed. Lies are fragile, and your empire of deceit is cracking. Every threat you make only exposes your fear, and the people see it all. The chamber erupted into chaos. Shouts, whispers, the clicking of cameras, and the shuffling of papers created a symphony of tension. The air was charged, nearly suffocating, as Trump's rage collided with Jasmine's precise, unyielding attacks. Every insult, every curse, every pointed accusation reverberated, sending shockwaves through the room and across global media feeds. Jasmine's voice rose over the storm, sharp, commanding, unrelenting. The people have been patient. They've suffered your lies long enough, and now the reckoning begins, with witnesses, documents, and truth itself. Trump slammed the desk again, his face purple with fury. You little tyrant! I will make you regret this day. But Jasmine remained the eye of the storm, steady, composed, her satisfaction barely contained. Regret? You'll find the world won't forget your lies, Mr. Trump. And justice doesn't care about your threats. It cares about the truth, and the truth is coming for you. Every journalist in the room caught the moment, the tense standoff, the unbroken gaze of Jasmine Crockett, the unraveling of Trump's composure, the witnesses' trembling courage. Across the globe, millions would later watch and feel the intensity of the storm, the raw power of truth confronting deception. The tension didn't just hang, it roared. Every second stretched, every breath drawn was weighted with anticipation. And through it all, Jasmine Crockett stood unwavering, her presence a beacon of relentless justice, a storm growing stronger with every revelation, every insult, every explosive detail laid bare. In that room, history felt alive. Every word, every glare, every curse, every revelation was more than testimony. It was a force of reckoning. And as the witness concluded their statement, Jasmine's satisfaction was palpable. She had landed a strike the world would remember, a blow to arrogance, deceit, and unchecked power. The media lenses clicked, the senators whispered, the aides scribbled, and the courtroom seemed to vibrate with the echo of a battle that had just begun. The storm was far from over, but Jasmine Crockett had just delivered the first thunderclap, and it was deafening. She leaned forward, eyes burning with an intensity that seemed to pierce the very air of the chamber. Every hand in the room clenched instinctively. Every camera shutter clicked frantically to capture what was about to unfold. Jasmine's voice, calm yet cutting like a razor, sliced through the tension. You only know how to threaten, Mr. Trump. You don't have the courage to take responsibility for your actions. The accusation landed like a hammer blow. The courtroom seemed to vibrate, every witness, aide, and journalist holding their breath. Trump's face contorted, his normally controlled smirk replaced by something raw, anger, panic, and the flicker of fear he had carefully hidden for decades. Courage? How dare you? I've built this country, led it, protected it. And you, Trump's voice cracked, rising in a crescendo of fury and desperation. You sit here and accuse me of cowardice? The words faltered, unsteady, betraying the chaos beneath his facade. Jasmine's gaze didn't waver. She leaned in, her voice calm but unrelenting. Courage is not hiding behind lies, manipulating others, and blaming everyone but yourself. Courage is accountability, and that is something you have never known. Trump slammed his fists against the desk, rattling papers and microphones, the sound echoing like thunder across the chamber. He attempted to seize control, to twist the narrative back in his favor, shouting, I have been elected. I have the power. Do you think your words can undo decades of influence? But Jasmine's eyes narrowed, each word deliberate, each phrase precise. Power without responsibility is tyranny, Mr. Trump. Influence without truth is corruption. You wield fear because you lack integrity, and everyone here knows it. The room seemed to tremble under the force of her words. Senators shifted uncomfortably, aides scribbled furiously, and journalists captured every moment. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath, documenting Trump's unraveling with stark clarity. Trump's face turned red, his voice breaking. How dare you? You're trying to humiliate me, to destroy everything I've built. You think I'll stand by and let this happen? Jasmine leaned forward slightly, letting the weight of her evidence settle like a hammer. Her finger traced documents, emails, and photographs, each one a dagger striking at the core of his power. You won't stand by because you never have. You've spent your life avoiding consequences, hiding behind influence and intimidation. But today, the world sees you for what you are, a man who cannot face the truth. Trump gnashed his teeth, waving his hands wildly, trying to regain the upper hand. But every gesture only revealed his mounting panic. This is political theater. Fake news. You can't do this to me in front of millions. Jasmine's gaze didn't flicker. Her voice was steady, cold, unrelenting. Millions are watching, yes. Millions who deserve to know that fear, threats, and lies cannot hold justice at bay. Every attempt to intimidate me only proves my point. You cannot take responsibility because you are afraid, and fear never wins. The courtroom felt like it was vibrating with energy. The tension was suffocating. Trump's face twisted with fury, the veins in his neck bulging, his usual confidence eroded by the relentless precision of Jasmine's assault. His threats became louder, more erratic, yet each one seemed to underline his unraveling rather than restore control. You don't understand the consequences. You'll regret this, he shouted, voice rising into a roar that reverberated through the chamber. Jasmine tilted her head, her expression unshakable. Regret? You'll regret ever thinking lies could protect you. You'll regret every time someone who trusted you realizes they were deceived. And the truth? It's coming, whether you scream, threaten, or rage against it. The witnesses and senators watched, riveted, as Trump's attempts to regain control collapsed under the force of her words. Every shout, every wave of his hands, every attempt at intimidation became fuel for her, sharpening her focus, solidifying her command of the room. The cameras captured the raw unraveling of a man who had built a career on control and charisma, now reduced to fury and desperation. Every journalist's feed, every live broadcast, every global media outlet amplified the spectacle. Trump losing his composure, Jasmine standing resolute, the storm escalating with every second. Jasmine's final words hung in the air like lightning, a strike that left the room trembling. You cannot hide, Mr. Trump. You cannot threaten. You cannot manipulate. You cannot escape. Today, the world sees a man unraveling and a woman who stands for truth. That is the difference between courage and cowardice. Trump's fists clenched, his breathing ragged, his control shattered. He gaped, momentarily speechless, as the chamber absorbed the weight of her words. The storm had shifted. The tide was turning. Jasmine had ensnared him in a trap of accountability and moral clarity, and there was no escape. The audience, both in the room and across the globe, felt the intensity of the moment. The battle had reached a turning point. Trump's unraveling was undeniable, and Jasmine Crockett's storm continued to gather force, unstoppable, poised to strike with precision in the moments to come. The room was electric. History was being written, and no one would ever forget the day the storm caught the lion. Jasmine's gaze never wavered, her voice slicing through the tense air like a sharpened blade. "You are a disaster for America, Mr. Trump. Lies have seeped into every word you utter, every promise you make." Her words echoed across the chamber, reverberating against the walls, across desks, through every microphone. The tension was suffocating, each syllable a punch aimed straight at Trump's ego, and the audience felt it deep in their chests. Trump leaned forward, veins bulging, his face a mask of fury and disbelief. "You just scream and pretend to be righteous. You think shouting makes you justice incarnate? You're pathetic." The courtroom held its breath. Every whisper, every shuffle of papers, every camera lens was attuned to the collision of these two forces. Jasmine didn't flinch. She met his glare head-on, her voice low and fierce. "Pathetic? The only pathetic thing here is your empire of deception. You manipulate, you intimidate, you lie, and the people are done being fooled." Trump slammed a fist on the desk, rattling papers, shaking the microphone. "You think words alone can destroy decades of power? You're a fool, a naive little girl playing at justice." Jasmine's lips curved into a cold, sharp smile. "Naive? I'm the voice of millions who've been silenced, the conscience of a nation you've tried to buy, cheat, and frighten. You may call me foolish, but I call it courage." The intensity escalated. Their eyes locked, sparks flying, each word like a dagger aimed for the other's throat. The air seemed to vibrate with their animosity, with the history of confrontation, with the raw energy of truth confronting arrogance. Trump's voice grew louder, more desperate. "You think exposing me will change anything? I've built an empire. People respect me. You're nothing but noise." Jasmine leaned slightly forward, letting her presence dominate the room. "Noise? No, Mr. Trump. You built your empire on fear and deceit. Respect built on lies is worthless, and today, for the first time, your lies are powerless against the truth." Every gesture, every glance became part of the battlefield. Trump's hands flailed, pointing at her, shaking with the effort to reclaim control. His face contorted in rage, veins throbbing, eyes flashing with panic beneath the surface of bravado. How dare you? You have no idea what you're up against." Jasmine's tone dropped, cold as steel, cutting through the noise. "I know exactly what I'm up against. A man afraid of accountability, a man who hides behind bluster because he cannot face consequences. That is what I fight, and that is why I will win." The chamber was a pressure cooker. The murmurs of senators, the scribbling of aides, the clicking of camera shutters. They all blended into a hum of electricity that made each word, each insult, each accusation sharper, more dangerous. Trump roared again, voice cracking. "You will regret this. You'll see. Everyone will see. I am untouchable." Jasmine didn't flinch. She raised a single hand as if to punctuate her authority, and her voice rang out with precise clarity. "Untouchable? The only untouchable thing here is the truth, and truth sees everything, exposes everything, and it does not fear you." The clash intensified. Their words ricocheted through the chamber, bouncing off walls, tables, and the very air itself. Each insult, each pointed accusation, each declaration of principle was magnified, amplified, felt in the chest and gut of every spectator. Trump leaned forward, teeth gritted, desperation creeping in as he attempted to regain control. "You're just trying to humiliate me. You don't understand power." Jasmine's eyes burned like fire. Power without accountability is tyranny. Influence without integrity is corruption. And arrogance without conscience is a catastrophe. That is exactly what you are, Mr. Trump. The words hung, deadly and precise, as if the chamber itself had stopped breathing. Trump's attempts at retaliation faltered under the weight of her logic. her courage, and the undeniable truth she wielded like a weapon. Jasmine pressed her advantage, voice rising slightly, each word deliberate. You cannot hide behind your wealth, your influence, your threats. Every lie you've told, every person you've deceived, every abuse of power, it ends here, and it ends now. Trump's face flushed, rage now mingled with panic, his voice escalating into a shriek. I am the leader of this country. You will not destroy me here. You... Jasmine leaned in, eyes locked, voice calm but cutting like a blade. You already are destroyed. Not by me, not by politics, not by anyone else, but by the very truth you tried to bury. And millions are watching you unravel. The chamber vibrated with the force of the confrontation. The clash of wills had reached a fever pitch. Each breath, each heartbeat, each flinch or twitch amplified the tension. Trump's fury had become chaotic, uncontainable, while Jasmine's focus remained sharp, unyielding, a storm of moral force driving toward inevitable victory. Every insult, every accusation, every defiant stare from Jasmine made it clear. This battle was more than a courtroom fight. It was a war for integrity, for truth, for the conscience of a nation. And in that moment, the world knew the storm had reached its eye, and history would never forget the clash of these two titans. Jasmine Crockett took a deep breath, steadying herself for the strike that would define the battle. She opened her briefcase once more and pulled out the final set of documents, proof so damning, so precise, it could not be dismissed or ignored. Every eye in the chamber widened. Every journalist's pen hovered. Every camera lens focused on the unfolding climax. This is it, she whispered to herself, though her words carried enough force to be heard by everyone. Then addressing Trump directly, she said with razor-sharp precision, You will not escape the grasp of justice, Mr. Trump. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. The documents hit the desk with a resounding slap, the sound echoing like a gavel striking fate itself. Charts, emails, financial records, and photographs spilled out, every piece a nail in the coffin of lies he had built over decades. The room fell into stunned silence, the tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Trump's face shifted from fury to panic, the mask of confidence cracking. This is ridiculous. This is fabrication. You think your papers can destroy me? His voice rose to a shout, but the power of Jasmine's evidence cut through the chaos like a lightning bolt. She leaned forward, eyes burning with unwavering focus, voice ringing like a clarion call. Fabrication? This is proof of every lie, every deceit, every betrayal. You manipulated, intimidated, and deceived for decades. And today the world sees it all laid bare. The courtroom felt like it had transformed into an arena. Each glance and gesture heightened, every whisper amplified. Trump waved his arms, desperate to reclaim control, but each movement only exposed his unraveling further. You'll regret this. I will destroy you. Everyone will see. This is treachery. Jasmine's response was measured, deliberate, unstoppable. You've lived by deception, but lies cannot withstand accountability. You may try to intimidate, to threaten, to rage, but the truth is a force you cannot command, a storm you cannot weather. And it begins now. The audience could feel the electric tension, the historical weight of the moment. Senators leaned forward, aides scribbled furiously. Cameras zoomed in on every expression. Trump's bluster, once commanding, now appeared frantic, disjointed, chaotic. He attempted to shout over her, to twist narratives, to belittle her, but it was too late. Jasmine's voice cut through the noise like steel. You may have thought power would shield you, influence would protect you, fear would silence justice. But the people, the law, and the truth are stronger than your threats. Every misdeed, every violation, every broken promise, you will answer for them. Trump slammed his fist onto the table, rattling papers, microphones, and glass. You think you can destroy me? You can't. I am untouchable. The people will support me. Her gaze remained icy, unwavering. She picked up a photograph, sliding it across the table with deliberate force. Untouchable. This is proof of your manipulation, your deceit, your abuse of power. Untouchable is a myth, Mr. Trump. Justice does not bend to ego or wealth, and the people, they deserve accountability. The chamber vibrated with tension. Each second felt elongated. Every breath drawn waited with anticipation. Every glare, every sneer, every word exchanged became part of a larger spectacle, a theatrical collision of truth versus arrogance, principle versus power. Trump's voice rose into a panicked roar, desperate and shaking. You'll pay for this. You'll see. I will crush you, destroy your career, ruin you. Jasmine leaned in slightly, letting her calm confidence amplify the effect of her words. Destroy me? The world will remember my courage, Mr. Trump. They will remember the day lies were confronted, deception was exposed, and the people finally witnessed justice. You can rage, threaten, and bluster, but history will not forget, and neither will justice. The witnesses, the senators, the aides, and the journalists all felt the gravity. The tension was at its peak, a perfect storm of fear, courage, truth, and chaos. The clash had transcended words. It was a reckoning, an unyielding confrontation between morality and deception. Trump's hands trembled now, his threats meaningless against the evidence, and Jasmine's unwavering conviction. He could no longer dominate the narrative. His fury was exposed as panic. His bluster crumbled beneath the weight of truth. Jasmine's voice carried the finality of a hammer striking an anvil. Every lie you've told has been cataloged. Every attempt to manipulate and evade scrutiny has failed. You are no longer untouchable. You cannot escape responsibility. The truth is here, and it will not be silenced. The room erupted in stunned murmurs, gasps, and flashes from cameras. The tension hung heavy, almost unbearable. Trump's control had slipped entirely, leaving him exposed, vulnerable, and cornered. For Jasmine Crockett, this was the culmination of every strike, every argument, every moment of courage. She had orchestrated the storm, navigated the chaos, and now delivered the decisive blow. Justice, accountability, and truth had landed their most precise, most devastating strike yet. The chamber hummed with history in motion. The storm Jasmine commanded had reached its peak, leaving no doubt. The battle for truth had been fought, and the verdict of history would remember this day. Jasmine's eyes never left Trump, her gaze sharp and unyielding, like a hawk circling a cornered prey. Her voice cut through the tense air, dripping with contempt and clarity. Your credibility is gone, Mr. Trump. What is left for you now? What power, what respect, what influence remains when the world sees the truth? The words landed with the force of a hammer. Senators shifted in their seats, aides stopped mid-scribble, and the journalists' pens hovered in stunned silence. Every ear in the room absorbed her declaration as though it were a verdict itself. Trump's face twisted, a mix of fury and panic seizing him. His chest heaved as he tried to reclaim the floor, shouting over the weight of evidence and the crescendo of Jasmine's command. I am still the leader. I have supporters. You will regret this. But there was no room for threats anymore. No facade could mask the unraveling. Jasmine leaned forward, voice low but sharp, each syllable a precise strike. Regret? The only regret will be yours, forever believing that lies could shield you, that fear could protect you, that power could excuse you. You are exposed, cornered, and powerless in the face of truth. The chamber seemed to pulse with energy. Every eye followed the duel. Every camera lens captured the intensity. Trump's movements became frantic. He waved papers, pointed fingers, tried to inject chaos into the narrative. But the storm was too tightly controlled, every angle anticipated encountered by Jasmine. Do you hear yourself? Do you see the destruction your arrogance has wrought? She pressed on, voice rising like a tempest. You tried to manipulate, to deceive, to intimidate. And yet here you are, stripped bare before the people, before history, and even your own allies. Trump's voice cracked, a mixture of rage and desperation. You think this chamber, these people, these papers can take me down? I built everything. I am untouchable. Jasmine's eyes flared with righteous fury, each word a surgical strike. Untouchable? No. Untouchable is a myth. And today, the illusion ends. The truth is unrelenting, Mr. Trump, and the people will never forget the cost of your deception. You can scream, rage, threaten, but it changes nothing. You are caught, and there is no escape. Every word seemed to reverberate in the chamber, bouncing off walls, desks, microphones, and every listener's soul. The tension became almost tangible, a living, breathing thing, pressing against the chest of everyone present. Senators leaned forward, some gripping the edges of their seats. Aides scribbled furiously, recording the unrelenting assault. Journalists' cameras zoomed and panned, capturing the moment when power itself faltered. Trump tried to storm back, waving his hands and pounding his fists, but each motion only revealed more of his unraveling. His usual control, his practiced theatrics, crumbled under the precision of Jasmine's relentless logic and moral authority. You cannot, you will not, this is unfair. Jasmine's voice cut like a blade, calm yet devastating. Fair or not is irrelevant. Justice does not bend to influence or anger. Accountability is not optional, and integrity does not fear exposure. You built your empire on illusion, Mr. Trump, but illusions crumble under the weight of truth. And today, yours are falling. The chamber erupted with energy. Gasps, whispers, camera shutters, and murmurs blended into a symphony of tension and awe. Trump's face flushed, his breathing ragged, his attempts to regain control increasingly desperate. The storm of Jasmine's truth had left him exposed, vulnerable, and isolated. Every eye in the room, every camera across the globe, felt the inexorable pressure of Jasmine's moral onslaught. She pressed the advantage, voice rising, tone unforgiving. No more lies, no more manipulation, no more hiding behind threats or power. The people see you, Mr. Trump. They see the arrogance, the deception, the fear, and history will not forgive it. Trump shouted, trying to intimidate, but the words rang hollow against the overwhelming clarity of Jasmine's accusations. You'll regret this. I will come back. You haven't seen the last of me. Jasmine's gaze, unwavering and commanding, met his every plea. Return? Perhaps. But nothing you do can erase what is revealed today. You are cornered, exposed, and accountable. Your empire of lies has been dismantled in front of the world. Every attempt to intimidate, every attempt to escape is futile. Justice cannot be threatened. It cannot be broken. It only triumphs. The tension became almost unbearable. Trump's rage had reached its peak, his shouts fracturing, his gestures frantic. Meanwhile, Jasmine remained the eye of the storm, composed, precise, unstoppable. Every syllable, every glance, every pointed finger tightened the circle, leaving Trump with no place to hide, no argument unchallenged, no exit unguarded. The audience in the chamber and around the world could feel the momentous weight. Every heartbeat, every gasp, every flicker of disbelief amplified the reality. Jasmine Crockett had cornered the lion, and the tide of victory was unmistakably hers. In that chamber, history seemed to pause. The storm she commanded had tightened around Trump, unyielding, precise, merciless. Every word of accusation, every revelation, every piercing look reinforced the inevitable conclusion. The battle for truth had reached its crescendo, and Jasmine stood unbroken, the embodiment of justice unleashed. Trump's composure shattered completely. His voice, once commanding, now trembled with rage and panic as he hurled threats and invective across the chamber. You think you can humiliate me in front of the world? This is treachery. I will destroy everyone involved. I will. But Jasmine Crockett did not flinch. Her gaze remained steady, unwavering, piercing straight through the chaos he attempted to unleash. She leaned forward slightly, her voice cutting through the roar of his fury like a scalpel. Truth is the blade that strikes directly into your web of lies, Mr. Trump. Every deception you've spun, every threat you've made, every illusion of power, it ends here. The room seemed to explode with tension. The journalists' cameras clicked frantically, capturing every twitch of his face, every flicker of panic in his eyes, every unguarded moment as the emperor of bluster unraveled before the world. Social media feeds erupted simultaneously, millions witnessing the spectacle in real time, the storm going viral within seconds. Trump slammed his fists on the table, rattling microphones and papers. "I built everything. I am the president. You cannot—" Jasmine interrupted him, her voice steady but merciless. "You built nothing of integrity. What you call power is nothing but fear masquerading as influence. And today that illusion has been dismantled before everyone watching." His face flushed crimson. Veins stood out on his forehead. He tried to raise his voice, to shout over her, to reclaim the narrative, but each word only made him appear more unhinged, more desperate. "You will regret this. You can't do this to me. You'll—" Jasmine leaned in, a slight, controlled motion, and her next words landed like cannon fire. "Regret? The world will not regret standing up for justice. The world will not forgive your lies. And you will face the consequences of every deception, every manipulation, every betrayal you have ever committed." The chamber seemed to vibrate, alive with the magnitude of the confrontation. Senators, aides, and witnesses all held their breath, caught in the intensity of the verbal storm. Every gesture, every glance, every carefully measured word from Jasmine tightened the grip of accountability around Trump. Trump's hands shook now, his threats increasingly frantic, his bluster hollow. This is a witch hunt. Everyone will see. You cannot." Jasmine's tone remained crisp, precise, and utterly unyielding. "A witch hunt? No, Mr. Trump. This is the reckoning you created for yourself. The world sees the truth. Lies crumble under scrutiny, and power without integrity is nothing but a fleeting shadow." Every document, every testimony, every piece of evidence she laid bare had transformed the chamber into an arena of historical significance. Every glare from Jasmine, every sharp phrase drove the narrative forward, suffocating any attempt at evasion. Trump's attempts to regain control became erratic. He gestured wildly, shouted over his own voice, and spat threats into the air. But the audience, both present and global, saw the collapse of his authority with absolute clarity. Every word he uttered rang hollow against the tidal wave of truth Jasmine unleashed. She pressed her advantage further, voice rising with righteous certainty. No amount of yelling, no amount of intimidation, no amount of threats can rewrite the facts. The evidence is clear, the witnesses are clear, and justice will not be silenced by anger or fear. The room's energy peaked. The clash had transcended a courtroom argument. It had become a global spectacle, an unavoidable, raw display of power, accountability, and moral reckoning. Every word Jasmine spoke landed like a hammer, every pause punctuated by Trump's helpless, rage-fueled flailing. You will see. You will all regret this," Trump shrieked, his face red, eyes wide, voice breaking, the full collapse of his carefully cultivated persona on display. Jasmine's calm, unflinching stare met his every outburst. She let her next words hang in the charged air, a definitive strike that no one could ignore. "The world will see, yes, but not the way you hope. They will see your deception exposed, your power stripped, and the truth standing unshakable. This is the final reckoning, and there is no escape." Every journalist, every witness, every viewer around the globe felt the gravity of the moment. Trump's empire of bluster and fear had met its match. Jasmine Crockett had delivered the decisive blow. Not with violence, not with force, but with evidence, precision, and the sheer weight of moral authority. The chamber erupted in whispers, flashes, and gasps. Social media exploded, streaming the scene in real time as millions watched history being made. Trump's control had vanished. Jasmine's storm had not only cornered him, it had dismantled him entirely. In that moment, the world recognized the magnitude of her victory. Every curse, every threat, every frantic attempt at dominance had failed. The eye of the storm belonged to Jasmine Crockett. Truth had triumphed, justice had been wielded, and the consequences of deception had been revealed in unrelenting clarity. The battle had reached its climax. The tension, the drama, the verbal onslaught, All of it converged into a moment that would be remembered, replayed, and studied for years. Trump's rage had peaked, his authority evaporated, and Jasmine's dominance in the arena of truth was absolute. The storm had broken, and in its wake, Jasmine Crockett stood resolute, unshakable, the embodiment of justice's relentless power, as the world bore witness to a showdown for the ages. The chamber had transformed into a sanctuary of truth, where the weight of evidence and courage could no longer be ignored. Senators, witnesses, journalists, and viewers alike absorbed the gravity of the moment. The world collectively recognized the sheer force of accountability, the unstoppable power of truth laid bare, and the undeniable authority of Jasmine Crockett's conviction. Jasmine's voice, calm yet piercing, filled the air, carrying a final verdict that could not be twisted or denied. You will face the consequences for every deception, every lie, every betrayal. The people see you now, Mr. Trump, and history will not forget the cost of your actions. The words cut like a blade. Trump's usual bravado evaporated. For the first time in decades, he felt exposed, vulnerable, and powerless. The weight of his accumulated lies, his manipulations, and his unchecked arrogance bore down upon him in the quiet intensity of Jasmine's gaze. She continued, her tone sharp, deliberate, yet infused with moral authority. Justice is not a game. It does not bend to wealth, to influence, or to threats. It is precise, unrelenting, and it has found you. Trump's hands clenched, shaking with frustration. He opened his mouth, attempting one last volley of threats, but the room held him in a grip tighter than any courtroom rule could enforce. You will regret this. This is unfair. You cannot. Jasmine held up a hand, stopping him mid-rant. Her eyes burned with clarity, and her next words landed like the final gavel strike. Unfair? No, Mr. Trump. It is justice, and the law does not care for fear. It does not bow to rage, and it cannot be intimidated. You created this reckoning yourself, and now it is here. You will answer. The chamber seemed to inhale collectively. The energy was electric but measured. The audience could sense the shift from chaos to order, from confrontation to resolution. Every whisper, every glance, every heartbeat underscored the magnitude of the moment. Trump's attempts to regain dominance faltered entirely. His voice grew hoarse, his gestures frantic, and his eyes flickered with the recognition that he had no path to reclaim control. The empire of bluster he had built for decades now appeared fragile, crumbling beneath the undeniable weight of truth and accountability. Jasmine pressed her advantage, her voice unwavering and authoritative. You have wielded deception as a weapon, intimidation as a shield, and arrogance as armor. But lies have limits. Fear has boundaries. And today, every shield, every weapon, every illusion has been dismantled before the people and before history. The world watched as Trump's posture began to collapse. Shoulders slumped, hands fell to his sides, and his face, once radiant with self-assurance, darkened under the realization of the inescapable verdict. The chamber felt the shift, the subtle yet profound transition from confrontation to accountability. Jasmine's words, sharp and precise, continued to hammer the point home. There is no longer room for manipulation, no longer space for deceit, no longer power derived from falsehood. You are accountable for your actions, Mr. Trump, and the world will witness the consequences of your choices. Every eye in the room followed the subtle surrender in his expression. The energy that had been chaotic, aggressive, and desperate was now subdued, absorbed by the moral clarity Jasmine commanded. Every gesture, every piercing look she gave reinforced the inevitable. The battle for truth had concluded, and justice had prevailed. Trump opened his mouth once more, but no words could find their mark. The chamber, the nation, and the global audience all held their breath as he finally lowered his gaze, a shadow falling across his once dominant presence. The authority he had wielded with impunity was eclipsed by the immutable force of truth. Jasmine's voice softened slightly, yet retained the commanding edge of moral power. Let this be a lesson. Lies cannot stand forever. Deception has a cost, and accountability, no matter how long delayed, is inevitable. The chamber erupted in a wave of acknowledgement. a silent yet unanimous recognition of the victory of truth over arrogance, of justice over manipulation. The press cameras clicked incessantly. The social media feeds erupted in real time, and viewers around the world felt the profound finality of the moment. Trump, cornered and humbled, could no longer conjure defenses, no longer attempt misdirection, no longer shield himself behind the remnants of his former power. Jasmine Crockett's storm had not just cornered him, it had stripped away every pretense, exposing him fully to history and conscience alike. Her gaze swept across the chamber, unwavering and resolute. Every word she had spoken, every challenge she had made, every accusation and revelation, all had culminated in this singular moment of reckoning. The audience, captivated, felt the weight of justice delivered not with force, but with precision, courage, and moral authority. "Your time of unchecked power is over," she concluded, voice echoing through the chamber. "The world sees you for what you truly are, and justice has claimed its due. Let history remember this day, not for the arrogance that was punished, but for the courage that stood unyielding." Trump bowed his head slightly, a gesture of reluctant acceptance, the darkness of his fading authority settling like a shadow over the remnants of his once commanding presence. The chamber exhaled collectively, the storm having passed, leaving clarity, resolution, and an undeniable testament to the power of truth. Jasmine Crockett stood alone, yet unassailable, the embodiment of relentless justice as the world watched, captivated and changed forever. The official results were undeniable. Donald Trump, once the unshakable figure of influence and spectacle, now stood exposed, his authority shattered, his image irreparably fractured in the eyes of the public. The storm he had tried to command for decades had turned against him, leaving him isolated, vulnerable, and humiliated before a global audience. The chamber hummed with the aftermath of revelation. Senators whispered in awe, aides exchanged glances of disbelief and relief, and journalists scrambled to capture every detail of the final moments. Every camera in the room focused on Jasmine, her presence commanding, unyielding, a beacon of moral certainty. Jasmine's eyes blazed with the intensity of victory, the glow of righteousness tempered by the gravity of history she had helped shape. She lifted her voice clear and unwavering, carrying the final words that would echo far beyond the chamber walls. "Justice will never bow to lies, Mr. Trump. Truth is not negotiable. Accountability is relentless. And today, the world has witnessed the triumph of integrity over deception." Her words resonated like a gavel striking eternity. Every syllable, every inflection, reinforced the irreversible conclusion. Power built on deceit is ephemeral, and moral courage has the strength to endure centuries. The chamber seemed to vibrate with the impact, the air thick with the weight of collective recognition. Trump's attempts to speak were now hollow. His voice cracked, a trembling echo of the arrogance that had once commanded attention. I built everything. You can't." But Jasmine, composed and unwavering, cut him off with a precision born of countless hours of preparation and moral clarity. "What you built was a facade, and facades crumble when confronted by truth. You are no longer a force to be feared, only a lesson to be remembered." The room seemed to hold its breath. The world beyond the chamber, watching through broadcasts and live streams, felt the tension and triumph simultaneously. Millions of eyes, millions of hearts were glued to the unfolding drama, witnessing history in the making. Social media erupted, hashtags surged, debates ignited worldwide. The storm of emotion and revelation was global. Jasmine's victory was not merely personal, it was emblematic. It represented the endurance of justice over intimidation, truth over manipulation, and moral courage over the hubris of unchecked power. She continued, her voice rising yet measured, carrying the weight of history and the authority of righteousness. "Let this be a reminder to all who would deceive, manipulate, or exploit. The truth cannot be silenced. The people, history, and conscience itself will always demand accountability." Trump's face, once proud and commanding, now displayed the shadows of defeat. His usual bravado was gone, replaced by a rigid, stunned silence. For the first time in decades, the world saw him unshielded, vulnerable, and fully exposed. The empire of ego he had built so meticulously had collapsed in a single, relentless confrontation. Jasmine allowed herself a brief, quiet exhale, the storm inside her settling into a calm yet fiery triumph. She did not revel in vengeance, nor in malice. Her satisfaction was in justice served, in the clarity of truth prevailing, and in the undeniable message she had delivered to the world. Deceit and corruption may rise, but they cannot endure the light of accountability. The chamber erupted in subdued applause, a collective acknowledgement of the magnitude of what had transpired. Journalists' cameras clicked frantically, capturing the moment Jasmine's gaze swept across the room, unflinching and victorious. Her every gesture, every inflection, communicated the finality of the reckoning. Trump attempted one final gesture, a feeble wave of defiance, but it was met with silence and the clear weight of his own defeat. He had no allies left in the chamber who could support his claims, no pretense left to mask the collapse of his authority. The darkness of his fading influence was palpable, settling over him like a shadow that could not be lifted. Outside the chamber, the media coverage intensified. News anchors repeated her words, analysts dissected every piece of evidence she had presented, and millions across the globe celebrated the triumph of truth and justice. Social media was ablaze with commentary, admiration, and relief. An entire generation reminded that integrity, courage, and moral conviction still held power in a world often dominated by bluster and deceit. Jasmine's final declaration rang through the chamber, a statement of principle and resolve that would be remembered long after the day ended. This is not the victory of one individual. It is the triumph of conscience, of law, of truth itself. Let it be known, justice is relentless, unwavering, and inevitable. Lies may rise, but they will fall, and the people armed with truth will always prevail. The audience, both present and global, felt the resonance of her words. Senators nodded subtly, witnesses exhaled, and the journalists continued to capture every nuance of her triumph. The chamber, once a battleground, now radiated a quiet but undeniable reverence for the power of justice fully realized. Trump, defeated and diminished, finally lowered his gaze. The weight of history pressed down upon him. The world had witnessed not only the collapse of a once mighty figure, but also the unwavering courage of a woman who refused to yield in the face of intimidation, lies, and fear. Jasmine Crockett remained standing, resolute, unshakable, as the chamber, the nation, and the globe recognized a moment that would echo through history. The storm had passed, leaving behind clarity, justice, and an enduring testament to the power of truth. And as the cameras panned out, the chamber emptied, and the media coverage surged, one fact was undeniable. The world had watched the fall of arrogance and the rise of unwavering moral authority, and the echoes of Jasmine Crockett's triumph would reverberate for generations to come. In the end, the triumph of Jasmine Crockett was more than a victory over one man. It was a testament to the enduring power of truth, courage, and integrity. It reminded the world that lies may rise and fear may spread, but honesty and moral conviction have a force that no deception can withstand. May we carry this lesson into our own lives, to speak boldly for justice, to act with courage, and to let truth guide our hearts, shaping a world where goodness prevails over corruption and conscience always leads the way. If this storm of truth shook something inside you, don't scroll past. Sit with it, share it, speak on it. Like, comment, and send it to someone who still believes justice must be seen and heard. Subscribe to Harrison Stories, where lies are never allowed to hide. Hit the bell, because the next confrontation is coming, and nothing will be sugar-coated. It's fierce, and it might just change the way you see courage, accountability, and power. This story is a fictional dramatization inspired by real injustices and real heroes standing up to corruption. Any resemblance to actual people or events is coincidental or symbolic, meant to challenge reflection and conscience. Thanks for watching. Justice is not given, it is demanded. This is Harrison Stories. This is Harrison,